Welcome to All Clear, the podcast that takes you beyond the rails. Brought to you by the team at Australian Jumping, this podcast dives into the stories, the people, and the horses shaping our sport. Whether you're a seasoned competitor or simply love the thrill of the clear round, All Clear delivers the conversations that matter. Hit subscribe and join us for a fresh perspective on the sport you love. Today's guest comes from one of Australia's well-known show jumping families, but he has firmly built his own path in the sport. Sam Williams has competed successfully at World Cup level and most recently secured the 2025 Australian Futurity Championship title with Bellatrix VP. Welcome, Sam.
Thanks for having me on, Joe. Really excited to be here.
Thanks, Sam. So, for those who know the Williams name but may not know your full story, can you just introduce yourself in your own words, how everything started with you and horses?
Yeah, so I grew up in Tonnebuck in Victoria. Yeah, born into a family that was quite embedded into show jumping. My father, Paul, he's done a lot of coaching, course building. He competed up to Grand Prix and World Cup level himself. And then obviously there's my brother, Nat, who probably a lot more known than myself. And he moved overseas at quite a young age, and we both had quite different roads into show jumping. He was more of a prodigy type junior, a bit like a Tom McDermott or a Jack Barker. You know, he won everything and had multiple horses, and, you know, as a 13, 14-year-old was winning mini prix and all of that. And for me, I had very little passion for show jumping as a kid. I thoroughly enjoyed watching the big classes, watching the really good riders. I loved watching the videos of the European World Cups that we would get sent occasionally, and, you know, watching Hickstead Derby back in the day, they really excited me. But when it came to actually hopping on the horse, I didn't have a huge amount of desire to do that. And my brother, he was keen to ride anything. So he would say, you know, I'll ride your horse today, and if it goes good, I might take it to the show for you if you want. And I was just like, yeah, go ahead. I'm happy for you to do that. So he was much more into it than I was, and I took a bit of persuasion to get into it, which I'm sure was a little disappointing for my dad, who really wanted me to be into it. And it took quite a while. I was probably 14 or 15 when I really started to get into show jumping. And that was more so because Matt had moved over to the UK full time and taken a job there. So he'd left a few horses behind, and that was a bit of a kick up the arse for me. So I sort of started riding a few of them, and one of those horses was a horse called Island Run, who he wouldn't be very well known, but he was quite a cool junior horse for me, who took me from 90 centimetres all the way up to Grand Prix. And when I sort of finished with him, he was sold to Jacob Wells to start his junior career, and he did a great job with him, and he's a big influence on my career. That horse, he was very cool. He was a cool looking horse and had his own way of going, but we had fun together. He was owned by David Quick, who has been quite an influence in my career, as well as he actually secured me the ride on my first World Cup horse, which was a horse called Noble Heroes. He was a very special horse to me. I only had him for 12, 18 months, and he was a thoroughbred, and some owners up in New South Wales had him that were friends of David Quirks, and they decided they're looking for a new rider and sent him down to me. And we went from jumping 1.25 to World Cup in that time. And we got our first World Cup, I think I was 21, and got that out of the way at Adelaide Royal. And the unfortunate thing about that was the last time I ever rode him. He got moved on to a bit more of a successful rider, which as a 21-year-old kid, you don't take very well. And you sort of leaves a bad taste in your mouth, I guess you could say, but you move on. And the good thing about that was I was able to put some more time into a horse that had come to me maybe 2 or 3 months before I'd lost the ride on Noble Heroes, which was a horse that really shaped my career, which was Highway of Saltbush, who was owned by Penny Stevens, who became quite a supporter of mine in the early days. He was a little bit of a rogue horse. He came to me because he kept jumping everybody off, and he was an unorthodox horse who He, an orthodox way of jumping, he didn't bend his legs very much. He just jumped high. And he quite often had a buck on the other side, and nobody had really got him going yet. He was 7 when I first got him. He was an incredibly careful horse, but he was not super brave. When you could get him on his day, he was fantastic. And, early days, he was a horse that was just so careful, and while you had him confident, he was amazing. And I think when he was going from sort of a metre 15 to a metre 30, I remember he jumped something like 30 clear rounds in a row, and he didn't even touch a rail in that time. And he was just that type of horse that, on his day, he was amazing. He was a funny horse, and we've still got him at the farm here at Volpaia Park, and he's a bit of a babysitter at the moment, looking after the young ones, and he's just a character, and some of the girls he scares and some of them love him, and he's just a funny horse. But we had some amazing moments together. So back in 2012, we actually decided to put in a World Cup, which I think 99% of the people thought I was crazy. And he wasn't a horse that looked like he should jump a World Cup. He was a scrawny, thoroughbred type. It was about 16'1", the smallest feet you've ever seen, and he just was not put together like a show jumper. But when he left the ground, he left the ground in a big way, and he didn't touch the rails, but he didn't always leave the ground. So sometimes you'd leave the arena on your feet, and that was never fun. But I remember going to Melbourne Royal with the plan that we were going to World Cup him, and I think people thought I was pretty stupid. And I thought, I'm going to get day one out of the way, and I'm going to see how he goes. And he was amazing, and he finished 4th and jumped around super confident. And then day 2 was the World Cup back then. And I remember going to the trot up, and I got quite a few looks. And he was also a horse that was hard to manage. You take him to a 3 or 4 day show, and he was off his feed. He wasn't eating. He was just a little bit of a difficult horse to manage. But he was never fat. He looked a little bit like a greyhound at times. And it was just the most amazing experience that day. I felt like people were looking at me thinking, oh, you're crazy. But I walked the course, and I thought, bigger than what he's jumped. I think he can jump this. I hope he can. So we're going to give it a go. And I remember we warmed up, and I thought, oh, he's really jumping today. So let's hope for a nice result. And I was midfield in the draw, and he jumped clear round, which it didn't shock me. I knew he had it in him, but I was not sure that it was going to be his first attempt. And then I sort of watched the rest of the class, and all the other good riders in it were just having a rail here and there. And we ended up being the only clear round, which shocked me a little. And I sort of came to the realization, I'm going to be last to go in the next round. And if I jump clear, I'm going to win. And so I just had the plan. I'm just going to take it one jump at a time, and we'll just see what happens. It was right up until I was about to go into the arena, and the horse before me was Kermo on Valhalla, who had one down in the first round, and then I didn't realise he had 2 down in the second round. And I sort of watched him, and I went, oh, he's on 12 faults now. And then the commentator said, oh, and that comes into the lead. And I sort of thought to myself, on 12 faults, oh, geez, I better go pretty well here. It's there for the taking. And I just took one jump at a time. And I remember thinking, when I jumped the 3rd last jump and I was still clear, I thought, oh, I don't have to clear these last 2 jumps. I've just got to get over them. And it was probably not the best thought to have. He cleared the 2nd last, and I remember just counting to the last thinking, just got to get through the finish flags from here. And I got him a little close, and he had it down, which was disappointing, but he won, and it was the most amazing experience. And it was kind of a funny lead into your World Cup career, being able to go in and effectively have 3 down and still win the class. It made it feel like it was not out of my reach, and he later proved to me that it was a bit of a fluke. He had some good results that year, but he was always quite a difficult horse to manage. And, we got, I think maybe another 12 months later, we got another decent World Cup out of him, but I think it was only 4 faults and 4 faults. But the rest of the time he would throw the towel in at times, and he would just do that. But we ended up over the next few years with him trying to get him to jump into more classes, but never really eventuated. And knowing what I know now, I would have retired him a bit earlier, but that's fine. But it actually led to the next chapter of my career, which was, without him, I wouldn't have met my wife, Suzie, which led to her moving to Victoria, and then I actually stole one of her horses. She brought a 5-year-old from Birdie Barry at NZPH called Commander NZPH. And he was a bit of a fiery character. And I guess after Saltbush had his career had sort of tapered out, I'd lost a fair bit of love for the sport and wasn't that interested in continuing on in it. And I remember the moment when I sort of sat on him. I thought, well, he's a fiery little horse, and I jumped him over a jump, and he sort of went to nick off on me, and I went, "There's something here. I just got to work with him and work together." And he really taught me how to win again and how to want it, and really the love for the sport came back. And he was the most amazing horse for that, and I owe him a lot for my career, for where we've ended up. And he's such an amazing horse. He actually also did the same for Suzie later on in his career. I got him to jump up to World Cup, and he was a very good horse, but he just wasn't quite a World Cup horse. They were just a hole too big for him. So I handed the reins over to Suzie, who also, she was starting to fall out of love with the sport. She had a couple of horses that weren't exactly what she wanted, and she was no longer smiling in the ring. And I sort of said, "You're going to ride Peanut next week at the show." And she was like, "You're crazy. I don't really want to ride him." And within 2 shows, she was smiling, winning ribbons, and he took her all the way up to Grand Prix level, and he was just the most amazing horse. And we owe a lot to Peanut. He was a very special guy in our life. So he's a very cool horse.
It sounds like, just listening to your story there, listening to you, and Matt went overseas and left you some decent horses to ride. It sounds like that's played a big part in your enjoyment of the sport, and I guess your ups and downs in the sport, the horsepower that you have at that time. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he took a horse over with him, and he left another horse called Star for Me, which he was World Cupping, which is just a thoroughbred that I didn't really get on with very well. He was a horse that didn't have a huge amount of confidence, and then I did not give horses confidence. I was quite a nervous rider back then, and I didn't enjoy it. I was happy to ride them at home, and getting in the ring was not the worst, but I wasn't getting enjoyment out of it. And I remember Matt had came back and ended up selling that one, and he went over to Japan, and we kept the Isle of Ran horse, who really suited me, and he really developed me into what I am now. And he just created the passion for me, which I never had before. And I never had a partnership with a horse like that. And he was by no means the most amazing horse in the world, but we just clicked, and it sort of led you to realize, forming a partnership with a horse, when you put your mind to it, you can sort of achieve anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Back in those early days, you had a good relationship with your brother. Was it competitive or just supportive?
It wasn't super competitive. We very rarely competed against each other. I found myself more in a grooming role from that, because he would have horses in every class, multiple horses, and he had owners and everything, and I just had no desire to really do it until he left. So I was sort of playing second fiddle, and occasionally I'd ride, and occasionally he had a super horse called Another Flashback, which was a little quarter horse cross that he ended up World Cupping, and every now and then he would say to me, "Oh, you can ride Flash in the Junior if you want this week," and it never went very well, but it was an amazing experience, and it was such a cool horse, and I'm very grateful for that, because it did teach me, there's some special horses that are out there that you can jump around on, and you're not going to do great on them, but you still have a lot of fun. And he would go and win many trees on it, and I would struggle to get around the junior classes the next weekend. But I was incredibly grateful for the opportunity to go and jump those classes that were probably a little out of my reach at the time from my experience. But we've had quite a good relationship, and it's good that we still talk quite a fair bit. He's over in America, but we're always WhatsApping each other and sending each other videos of our rounds, and, bouncing ideas off of each other, more me bouncing ideas off him than the other way around. But it's really nice to be able to have somebody who's got that experience to do it. And I've spent some time overseas with him. When I was 18, I went over to England for a while, and when he was based with Duncan Ingles, which was pretty cool. Got to see the sport from a different view, and also spent some time in Florida before Rio, which was very cool. he had a very cool horse, Valinsky S, which was super cool to be able to see, what goes into getting a campaign like that together. It's a lot of work and a huge amount of pressure, and it was just really eye-opening to see, and it was just exciting to watch all of that.
And your dad, Paul, has given so much to the sport, particularly in Victoria. What are your memories of his involvement?
Well, it didn't ride as much in my memory, especially once Matt had started to be good. He focused more on Matt and I. Dad's always been around and always been coaching and helping anybody, and there's nobody that he won't lend a hand to. He's just a really nice guy, and he'll just help anybody who needs a hand, and it's just really nice to see. And he had a huge involvement in the Victorian young rider squads for many years when Matt and I were part of it too. And he took a lot of kids on trips over to England and stuff like that back in the day for the Victorian squads. And I mean, he jumped quite competitively himself, but my memory of him is more, helping Matt and I, and just doing anything to help us get ahead, which, I mean, at the time as a kid you take for granted, but now you look at it and you go, oh, it's a pretty amazing experience to have from your dad. And yeah, we're very grateful for the opportunities that he's given both Matt and I.
Before we continue with this chat, I would like to thank Divas Beverages for sponsoring this podcast and for all they do for our jumping community. Divas Beverages is a business that truly gives back to the sport we love. Visit divasbeverages.com.au to explore their full range of carefully crafted premium beverages. Now back to our guests. We'll just go back and just talk about horsepower for a little bit. So in November last year, you won the Futurity Championship at Aus Champs at Volpaia Park on Bellatrix VP. Can you tell us about that horse and about that win in particular?
Yeah, so she's an extremely special horse. It's quite a good story about how she came into our lives. So our biggest supporters are Susie's parents, David and Bridget Willis. And for their 40th wedding anniversary, David had decided to buy an embryo from Melissa Foch at Volpaia Park, who's been doing some amazing breeding. And Bridget's favourite rider in the world was Nick Skelton. So she's by Big Star, and she's out of a crystalline daughter that she breeds with a fair bit. So she's very well bred, and it's just a really amazing thing that he just decided that we're going to buy this embryo and we're going to go on a trip with it and see where it takes us. And I'm incredibly lucky to have the ride on her. She's an incredible horse. As a young horse, born 5-year-old, she was not the horse she is now. She was very dull and not very impressive, and she's small, and she just didn't have a huge amount going for her. She jumps some nice jumps every now and then. She's a bit slow. She just didn't light my world on fire at the time. And then all of a sudden, probably at 5.5, coming into a 6-year-old, she just got competitive. She became ultra careful, super brave, super fast, and just sort of everything that I wanted in a horse. And it's really lucky that we were able to do that for a horse that we've effectively had since an embryo. We didn't decide on what the sire or the mum were going to be. We bought her as an embryo, but to end up with the horse that you wanted from that is quite astounding, to be honest. And what Foshi's doing with her breeding, I mean, it's a real credit to her. There's quite a few full relations to her in the same class as the best. They're very good horses. I'm biased and think that she's the best of them, but it's just amazing to see all these horses that are full relations, same age, and they're just pretty amazing, and it's really cool. She's a horse that has exceeded our expectations on every account. I'm a big one to making a plan for a horse, and we've made lots of plans for her, and she's pretty well won everything that we've put our mind to. I mean, she's 7 now, and she's won her last 3 futurities. She's won 2 mini prees this year. So we decided to make a plan for the Aus Champs in November that we wanted to go and we wanted to win the Future Stars. And it was quite a bold plan. I mean, she's only just 7 at that time, and she was coming off some good form. She was leading Part 2 horse at Melbourne Royal, and jumped amazing there, was placed every day, won most of the classes, and just was in incredible form. So we decided That's our goal. We want to win Aus Champs Futurity, and it's going to sound a little cocky, but we went into it and everything we had planned came to fruition. Day one, I didn't want to win day one. I wanted to, go around at about 70% effort. I wanted her to be top 10. I didn't want to take anything out of her. I just wanted her to go jump around. It was in ring 2. She's a little unimpressed by that. She knows to rise to the occasion, and she was kind of a bit like, oh, in ring 2, I don't know what's going on here. And we counted around, and she was maybe a little quicker than I'd hoped, but that's just a little bit her. And she ended up finishing 5th, which was like, yeah, I'm really happy with this. And we moved on to day 2, which was in ring 1. It was a 2-phase, and it was seeded. So I'd got to watch the first half before I even got on. And I was just thinking, I know it's seeded, but I haven't seen anything that's going to be competitive against her yet. So I sort of went, my plan was I wanted to win day 2. She's always best going into a nice class off a win. And I thought, if I can win day 2 and leave a bit in the tank, I'll be really happy. And we went in, and the course just came up just exactly how we wanted it. And she took a couple of seconds off the leader. Really cool. And then I know Suzie came after me, and she came in second and sort of split the middle a little bit. But it felt really good because I sort of went, I haven't put everything out there. I've left a bit in the tank, and with a little bit of luck on Sunday, I think we're a good chance here. And then come Sunday, it got quite wet it got wet on Saturday, so it was quite wet. And for her, it doesn't really matter too much if it's wet, dry, muddy, slippery. She's just a horse that, she's good on her feet. She doesn't matter too much if she's not happy. She knows her job, and she rises to the occasion. So we went out, and the first round I thought, it's tall enough, but it's well within her grasps. And we jumped around, and I had a little bit of luck coming out of the double in the first round. And I sort of thought to myself, wow, I knew I needed some luck. I hope I haven't used it all up now. And so there was about 11 or 12 in the jump off from memory. And I sat down with Suzie, and we were just discussing, we're going to go inside here, we're going to go outside there. What are we thinking? And I watched Chuggy go on the Crystalina horse, who's fast. And it went, and I went, oh, it's quick. It's quick. I think we've got it covered. We're just going to have to, it's all going to have to come up. Right. And so we did that, and I just did my normal warm up on her, and she was jumping fantastic. And I like to get in the ring nice and early. So I was in the ring when Frida, her round was on, and I think she took 2 seconds off Chuggy. And I thought, oh, that's quick. It's a quick horse, but I think watching it, I was like, I think we could still get it. So I was like, I've just got to get this first line down, and get the next turn, and then get that double out of the way that we had a little bit of luck at. And then from there, she's fast on her feet, and I can use that to my advantage. And everything just came up exactly how we wanted. And I remember the last 2 jumps, I just came around the corner, and I just saw this big distance, and I thought, it's a long way away. And every stride, it just felt a little better and a little better. And she just ate it up, and ended up being a touch quicker than Frida and winning the class. And it was just an incredibly proud moment for both Suzie and I. We'd set this plan to win this, and at a big show and a big occasion, and she'd come through and did everything we expected, and probably more, to be honest. Like, the conditions were not great. She just thrived on it, and she knew that it was a big occasion and it meant something. And that's what makes horses great, is they know those things. And to be honest, I would have to say she's the best horse that I've ever sat on. I think she'll probably be the best horse I ever do sit on. And I'm very biased, but I think that she's one of the best horses in the country. And what we've seen so far is just the beginning for her. She's incredibly special, and it's just for us. We've just got to manage her now and keep her happy and sound. And the whole time with her, we've been letting her tell us what pace she wants to go at. So we try not to plan too far ahead. And the problem with her is she always wants to do more. She wants to jump bigger. She wants to jump faster, and she wants to win. And it's a very rare quality in a horse to have, that they know when it matters. And the good horses, they do that, and she's got that quality. You can feel in the warm up when it's a class that means something. It's like she can feel the nervous energy from around her, all the other people in the warm up, and she just goes, yeah, I'm finding this is good. We can go and do our best now. And it's just a really rare quality to have, and we're very lucky to have the ride on her. So.
I know from my perspective, she was not a horse that I was familiar with, and I'd seen her in the second round and then in the final. And honestly, Sam, a couple of the shots I got of you guys are my favourite shots from that whole show.
Yeah.
She just was beautiful going over those fences. I came away thinking, oh, that's some special horse. And I said, I didn't know of her, and you and I hadn't met. So I wasn't like looking out for you or anything, but yeah, she's absolutely beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So it was really great to see you win that. It was a very special moment, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, it was amazing. And we were very lucky that Bridget was there to watch it all as well. And I know she was a nervous wreck, as was Susie. And luckily for me, I don't get very nervous. I was just sort of, I was going out there to do a job, but it was just such an amazing experience. And she was just on fire, that show. And she did a little flown under the radar for a lot of people because, I mean, we're very lucky in Victoria. We've got some amazing shows. We don't have to venture too far to jump in these shows. I mean, I think the only interstate show she's done was Showcase last year. And she was really good there, but she'd just come off winning the mini pre-final at State Champs down at Werribee just a few weeks before, which was a little bit more her goal than going to Showcase. So we sort of had flown under the radar a little bit, and she was only 6 at that point, which is pretty amazing. And so we were just very lucky to have her, and now it's just about doing the right thing with her. So.
Yeah, and how much more special that you've just had her just right from before the beginning, basically. I mean, that just must mean so much more to you as well.
Absolutely. And she's a product of what Susie and I believe in. We really like sharp horses. We like them to pull us to the fence and be super careful and super brave. And she's just everything that we want. And I mean, normally you'd be trying to buy a horse like that, but somehow we ended up just getting one through buying an embryo, which, I mean, it could have come out with 3 legs, who knows? So it's just astounding that the horse that we want it kind of fell into our laps a little bit. And I'm very lucky too, because at the time there was another young horse that Susie and I, we both had the option on, and that one was out of her young rider mare. So she wanted that one, and I got this one. So I was the lucky one who got the good horse, and she's just amazing. And it's an incredible journey to be on with a horse like that who probably wants it more than I do. And I really, really want it, but she just has this desire to want to win. And it's something you can't teach a horse. And I'm it's probably a little controversial, but I don't think when you've got a horse like that, do you want to teach them not to win? You've got to let them have their wins. She thrives on having a win, but she's not a horse she doesn't like the presentation or anything like that. She's kind of, I like the win and a couple moments after you go through the finish flag, and then you move on to the next in her mind. Where some horses just love the presentation. They love the fanfare of it, and she's not that. And she's an incredibly funny horse. I listened to a podcast ages ago from Laura Kraut, and she was talking about horses that do everything right. Early on in her career, she had a horse that she kept sending over to Europe, and she felt like she could just send it over anywhere because it ate and it drank really well, which sounds stupid, but she goes, it never got sick, it never got travel sickness. It would land, it would eat, it would drink, it would do everything it was meant to do. And that's kind of her. So very early on, it's a funny story, she got swabbed at Melbourne Royal. She was second in a Part 3 class. And she was a terror. She did not want to be swabbed, and she wouldn't wee. They tried to get blood, and she was just a terror. Not getting the blood, but she hated it. And I kind of said to Susie, she's such a pain. I just wish she just would have weed, and it would have been easy and it wouldn't have been a problem. And it was like she was listening to us. Now, without fail, every time I take her saddle off, she wees. And she's just learned that, one day I'm going to get swabbed again, and I'm going to have to wee. And it's a real pain when she's at home and you take the saddle off and she wees. But it's pretty amazing. Now, she's been swabbed quite a few times since, And we have to take her in the swabbing stable with her saddle on, because as soon as I take it off, she's ready to go. And she just does everything right, how you'd want a horse to. And it's like she listens to you, and she's like, yep, well, you said that once, so I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it all the time. And it's just a really special quality to have. So we're very lucky.
You certainly are. That sounds absolutely fantastic. You mentioned Susie and who got what horse. How do you guys generally work through that when you've got horses? Who gets first pick? Is there a system?
There's no system. At the moment, it's quite easy because we're actually expecting our first child in April. So I've got all the horses at the moment, which is good. Susie's getting pretty itchy to ride now, but it means that we've still got 3 really competitive mares at the moment, and it's really nice to have the ride on them. But there's no real system to how we pick who we ride. Susie's ridden Bellatrix before. It's not really her ride. She a little takes over control if you're not careful. But we really, whatever horse suits the other better. And if one of them's not going super well for one, we can swap, and we have different styles of riding. We're lucky that we can do that and bounce ideas off each other. We are lucky that we both get on with similar horses, but we do have different approaches to it as well. But there's no system to who gets to ride what. I don't think she has much interest in riding my mare anymore, but I'm pretty glad about that. So,
this episode is proudly supported by Mr. Breeches, and we sincerely thank them for backing the podcast and our sport. Mr. Breeches is an exclusive menswear range of workwear and competition breeches, shirts, socks, and caps. Masculine, comfortable, and durable clothing. The brand for all male equestrians. Visit their website today at mrbreeches.com. Now back to our guest. Is Susie planning to keep going with the riding after the baby? I imagine she's keen to get back on.
Yeah, she's really keen. She's already planning the second half of this year to what shows we're going to go to, which is exciting, and she's really keen. We have another mare that we brought from Paul and Michelle Brent called Volpaia Park, Kiara, who is quite a different story to the chestnut mare. We brought her as a 7-year-old and for Suzie, and she's a super sensitive, hot, very careful type of mare. And she's had quite a few setbacks in her career so far. She's had an ovarian tumour that's been taken out. So one was, I think, about 3 years ago, and her form had just really dropped all of a sudden, and it took us quite a while to realise what was wrong. We kind of thought, she's just got uncareful. She's not doing what we thought she would be, and then we finally got some tests done and realised she had an ovarian tumour, and we got that taken out, and that was a big help in her career. And she jumped through nice classes with Suzie, but she was still just not super competitive how we wanted. And then Suzie, she decided to stop riding just before Melbourne Royal, and I took over the ride, and she sort of dropped her form mid-show. She won the first Part 2 classes really easy, and I thought, this horse is on fire. She's just going to win everything. And she just dropped her form, and she started having rails she wouldn't normally have. And we just went with our experience from before, there's something wrong. And she started behaving a bit funny, and we got her scanned again, and about a week later she was having her second ovary out, which was pretty rough on her, and we feel really bad for her. But we caught that one really, really early. So now she has no ovaries, so we can't breed with her, but we have got a frozen embryo out of her through ICSI, which hopefully will stick when we decide to put it in the mare. So that's exciting. But we've done a fair bit of rehab with her coming out of that, and a lot of help from one of our sponsors, Kiara Performance Horses, which is Sue Middleton, who does all that body work. She's been giving us quite a hand with her, and she's come back in absolutely fantastic form. And she's 4 shows post that, and she's in the best form of her career. I mean, she just won her first metre 50 Grand Prix at the Elms at Sale a couple of weeks ago, and jumped a really nice round in the Grand Prix at Bonio on the weekend just gone. And we're really excited about the future for her and what the next few months can bring, and make a plan for her, and hopefully everything comes to fruition. It doesn't always, but always fingers crossed that it does. But Susie's so excited to be riding her again, and it's a horse that means a lot to her. And one of my proudest moments, I have to say, is probably winning the Grand Prix at sale the other week. Just seeing how happy that made Suzie was a memory that I'll cherish forever, because the horse has been through so much, and Susie's done 95% of the career. And I've just stepped on for this last little bit, and I'm reaping all the rewards. But it's just amazing to see Suzie be so thrilled for her horse to go out and do that, and we're just so excited that she can do that and jump those classes, and it's just, we've got so much to look forward to her with her. Yeah, we just can't wait to see what it brings.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm sure you'll not be keeping that horse for very long. You'll be giving her back fairly soon.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be keeping that one for very long. I think she'll have a little break, and then I'll probably bring her back into work, and I'll lose the ride pretty quickly. So, but I'm pretty happy with that. It's her horse, yeah. And I'll miss her. I have quite a bond with her as well. But Susie's definitely got the bond, and yeah, she means a lot to both of us, that horse, and she's a special mare, and she's been through a lot, and we've been by her side the whole time, and it's just a really special horse to both of us.
Yeah, and I'm sure that just as Suzie loved watching you guys do well together, I'm sure that you'll really enjoy watching Suzie do well on her as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I can't wait to see her back in the ring on her when the horse is in top form, and I'll be there on the sidelines with our baby watching and be proud, and yeah, I can't wait for it, to be fair.
Yeah, that sounds so exciting. So you and Suzie have built Volpaia Park. What are you creating there? What's the vision for that business?
So for us, we want to have nice horses and some nice clients, and teach good people. And so we've set up a really nice property here with the help of Susie's parents, and we set it up we want it to be beautiful, and people want to come here and do things with us. So, we're trying to grow our business and find more clients and find more horses and do all of that. And obviously with success that can come, but we're super keen we have quite a passion for helping people, both of us. And Susie's very, very talented at getting people to get confident in the ring, where for me, I'm a little bit more, I'm a bit of a fine tuner, you change this little thing and you can save a couple of seconds off here and there, and you can go from, not being in the ribbons to winning the class, where Suzie can get people with no confidence straight up and jumping and enjoying it. And people who haven't enjoyed jumping for a while, and they come and have one lesson with her, and they're smiling and they're enjoying it. And I think she has a real talent to that. And so we've sort of got two different approaches, and hopefully we've got something that can work for everybody. So it'd be nice to think that.
That sounds fantastic. I might pop down as well some stage, have some lessons. So alongside that, you also have a horse truck manufacturing business. How did that come about, and where did you learn to do that?
So that's something that my dad had taught me. He used to tinker around and do pairs on trucks and do things like that. And then when I'd finished school, I decided to give it a go. And I've been doing it a while now, and we only do it on a small scale. We don't try and build a lot of trucks. I've got a good team at work that helps, and I've got a great team at Volpaia Park, which means that I can have a business and I can come and do horses. So we're very lucky, because I'm at work all day. I still need to put in 100% into the horses training. So when you finish work and you've got to come home and ride 3 or 4 horses after work, we're lucky we've got lights on the arena, and we've got great girls at the farm who can help us out, and it means that we can look after the horses properly and train them properly and do everything we want and have them ready for the shows how they need to be. So we're very lucky, and we've got some great sponsors as well. So we've got like Horizon Show Jumps, so they supply us with all their jumps for the arena, which is as close as you're going to get to the jumps at the show. So it's great to be able to train your young horses over that, and if you have a problem with a jump, it's no dramas. You just have something similar at home, and we're very lucky on that. And then on the other side, we've got Sue Middleton from Calio Performance Horses, who does all the body work, which is super important, because these horses are athletes, and yourself, if you have a niggle, you can't perform at your best. And she's just really good at finding those and fixing that. So we're very lucky. She comes down from Sydney once a month and does all of our horses. And we just had a new sponsor come on board in Bruno Delgrange, which is Rod McQueen, who was on your podcast recently. So we've been using their saddlery for 10 plus years and we love it, which is pretty cool that they've come on board. But we're just very lucky to have help on both sides of, in the truck business, the horse business. Without help, you can't do it. So it's very much a team sport on both sides. So we're very lucky.
And your brother Matt, he's been overseas for more than 20 years now, I think. What's that like for your family, for you and your family?
It's interesting. So Matt moved over for, I think he did a 6-month stint when he was 17 or something like that. And then he moved over full-time when he was 18. So to be honest, we don't see a lot of Matt. We talk to him a fair bit, but I think the most he's been home for since he moved over full-time is maybe a couple of months, which is, it's a bit hard. Like we're close, definitely, but you don't see each other very much, but you talk a lot. We're both very proud of what we've both achieved. I think for Matt, it's amazing. I mean, he's done 3 Olympics and a WEG all on different horses. Most of them he's got just in the lead up to the events. And it's funny, it shows a lot of people talk to me about, I never really knew Matt and all of this and what was he like. And it's a bit hard because in my mind, he just won everything here. Like he was very much like a Tom McDermott or a Jack Barker, where they just had multiple horses and they won half of the events at the show. And I remember Matt was very frustrated as a kid. He was probably 15 or 16. He had probably 2 or 3 horses that he could World Cup, but he wasn't old enough. So he had to wait. And that, I remember they kept trying to find loopholes that he could start here or he could do this, and nothing worked. And he ended up, they used to run Bega World Cup over New Year's Eve. And the World Cup was on the 1st of January. And so he was 17 and the calendar year, and he was straight in the World Cup. And he did a few World Cups, and he never really had the horsepower to really be competitive in those, but he had the talent to do it. We're not from a wealthy background, so the horses that we had were generally always failure horses that wouldn't jump for somebody else, and you got the ride on them for a show, and then all of a sudden you had them full time. And the horse that he was World Cupping star for me, he was a decent horse, but he was never going to be a world beater. And he World Cupped him, and he ended up World Cupping his junior horse as well. Another flashback, which we spoke about before. He used to let me start in juniors, and he World Cupped him at Tonnebuck, which is where we grew up, in the indoor there. And I remember it wasn't planned. It was just a star for me actually failed to trot up. So Matt went, bugger it, I'll go get another horse. And back then you didn't have to enter and do temperature checks and all of that beforehand. You could just go and get your other horse and trot them up with their passport, and away you went. And it was the most amazing thing. We all thought that the horse was amazing, but we never thought he'd jump a World Cup. And Matt just had this belief in him, and I think he ended up running 4th in it. And it was probably Matt's best World Cup in Australia. And it was just the most amazing thing to watch. And it really taught me a lot that, a bond with a horse can go well past actually what their talent is. When you do it together, you can really achieve things that you don't expect to achieve and nobody else expects you to achieve. I guess that's a little bit what led me to thinking I could World Cup Saltbush and that it would go well. And we just believed in each other on the day, and it all came to fruition, and it was pretty amazing.
Were you ever tempted to follow Matt and base yourself overseas?
I've always put thought into it, but I like Australia too much. For me, seeing the effect that it's had on Matt, it's a huge commitment to move over there, and it's a very cutthroat industry over there. Like, you lose the rider to the drop of a hat. And you might think you're going to this show with this horse, and all of a sudden that horse is with somebody else. And I know Matt's had some setbacks over his career with losing horses to more experienced riders and stuff like that. But for me, Australia's really my home. And for Matt, I think show jumping is his home. He lives it. He's a student of the game, and he just lives and breathes it. I think he just put his mind to it, and that's what he was going to do. And he's never really looked back. And for me, it's also not quite the life that I wanted to live. You know, I don't want to be traveling all the time and do that. I like to have a base and a bit of a homebody at times. So for me, I've always put thought into, would you like to go and do it? And the answer's always been, not really. I would love to go and do those big events, but I guess I'm not willing to give it everything to go and do those. I mean, when you get a special horse, it's different because you've already got that partnership, but to uproot yourself and move over there and do that would be incredibly difficult for me. If you get a good horse, you never know what adventure they can take you on. And I'm always open to anything, any opportunity that presents itself in front of us.
Horizon Show Jumps was founded by people who genuinely love the sport, and that shows in everything they do. What started back in 2013 as a search for better quality jumps has grown into one of Australia's leading suppliers, with their fences now seen at major events like Melbourne Royal, Equitana and Aus Champs. Horizon specialise in custom-built jumps for private arenas, eye-catching sponsor fences that really make brands pop, and a full range of hire equipment with designs that are regularly refreshed so courses always look and feel professional and current. And now they're also building high-quality stables, carrying that same attention to detail and understanding of horses across your whole setup. If you're looking to lift your arena, your barn, or your next event, head to horizonshowjumps.com.au. And now back to our guest. What do you think it really takes for an Australian rider, and you've seen what it takes with Matt, what it takes for an Australian rider to commit to that international competition long term?
Yeah, you really have to commit your life to it, and you have to commit financially, blood, sweat and tears. It's just, you have to live and breathe it. I don't know how Matt does it, to be fair. It's a lot of work, and to be able to do it the amount of times that he has, and I mean, he's still got the desire to keep wanting to go and do it. And I mean, he hasn't had a horse capable of that for a few years now, and I know he's got one now that he's hopeful of. But it's just a lot of effort. And to be fair, there's not a huge amount of reward. I mean, you go to 3 Olympics, and it doesn't mean you get jobs easier or anything like that. It's a very cutthroat industry, and whoever's in form is the slave of the day, and you can be quickly forgotten. And I remember Matt telling me early on when he was in Florida, and he had the horse that he took to London, Watch Me, and it was a horse that probably would have never gone to the games with anybody else. It was a funny horse, and he said the biggest thing in America is you've got to be in the Grand Prix. If you're not in the Grand Prix, it doesn't matter, because that's the only class that everybody watches, and that's the only way you get owners. You've just got to be in there, and you've got to be seen. You don't have to be winning it, but you've got to be there. It's quite a commitment to be there every week. And for an Australian doing it now, it's ridiculously expensive. I mean, America is so expensive to go to those big shows and jump those big classes. You've got to have backers behind you. I mean, it's no longer somebody can go and get a good horse and take it overseas and win their way around with all, prize money covering everything, because you've got to be able to put $5,000 up to go on a show, which that's a lot of money to be able to go, I think my horse can go start in this 5-star Grand Prix at West. I'm going to put $5,000 up and find out it doesn't like to jump under lights, and that's my one shot gone. It's incredibly expensive, and I look up to the people who commit to doing it. There's quite a few Australians over there now who are giving it a red hot go, and kudos to them. It's pretty amazing, and I hope it all pans out for them, because it's a huge investment financially and mentally and everything else. It's a huge, huge job to do.
Yeah, absolutely. You're obviously in contact with Matt. You're watching what's going on overseas, and you're on the ground here. From where you sit, how healthy do you think that the sport is in Australia now?
I think the sport is in a pretty good place. I'd love to see, I don't know how we do it. I'm not the person to do it, but there's somebody out there who would know a lot more than me. Somehow we've got to get outside money into the sport. I mean, the sponsors that sponsor every show, and they end up getting bled dry, and it takes one bad experience at a show for all of the shows to lose that sponsor. And it's just, we're just taking money from the sport and putting it back into the sport, but not actually getting it from outside. Somehow we've got to be able to figure out how to do that, and we've got to make our product more attractive. It's very hard to find outside money into sport. These corporate teams events that they're doing are fantastic. I mean, it's amazing. We just did the one at GDP a few weeks ago, and there's 32 riders in it, and everybody got paid to go in that class effectively. So, and it's enough to cover like 2 or 3 horses for the show, but they don't happen every week, and we shouldn't expect sponsors to be putting up that sort of money every week. But it'd be nice to somehow find money from elsewhere from making our sport more attractive to the public. But it's hard. But somehow, if we could do that, the sport can grow, because when there's more money in it, you get more opportunities to have owners, to win more prize money. That means that you might go and buy that embryo from Foshi that you were thinking about, or something like that leads to a great horse, and you might be able to get some more clients because so-and-so want their kid to get into the sport more, and they need somebody to help them. And you kind of need to follow the American style a little bit. It's just so expensive over there. I don't think it was that expensive here. I don't think anybody would be turning up. But I've noticed even just recently, the last few shows down in Victoria here, the numbers have been well down. I'm not really sure the reasons behind it, but our shows have been a bit quieter. Even GDP was quite quiet for what it is. There's a lot of riders missing, which isn't ideal for the sport, but we need to fix that somehow, and whatever that looks like. But there's some amazing shows that we have here. I mean, Showcase is happening again. We've got some really good shows and some really good grounds. Like those polo fields are amazing. The polo fields at Werribee are equally as good, where they run state champs down here. We've got Bonio. We're incredibly lucky in Victoria to have these places, and we can go and jump at sail on good ground and good gear. And we're lucky with the course builders that we have, that we can go and jump international quality courses and in our backyard.
That is a theme that comes a lot with the people that I've been chatting with in this podcast, getting some external sponsors, some bigger companies. I interviewed John Fay, and he talks about the day, he had Tony Barlow Menswear. That was a big sponsor for him. And then you hear about the days of the Bond Derby and Volvo sponsoring the World Cups. And we somehow need to get back to that.
Like, even on a small scale, podcast like this can help, because it's until somebody listens and can go, oh, actually, so-and-so thought about sponsoring years ago. Maybe they still might be interested, and it's just little leads that can lead to big things eventually. And I mean, there used to be some amazing sponsors and backers in Australia back in the day. And I mean, imagine if you put a Volvo car on a class now, like it would just be astounding. It just wouldn't happen here anymore. But I mean, that's a dime a dozen over in Europe. The amount of money that they're jumping for in Europe and America, I mean, we're just never going to be able to do that. It's just crazy money. But pretty cool if you're there and you can win those classes. But realistically in Australia, it's a bit of a pipe dream. But, fingers crossed one day we might be something close to it.
I was listening to a podcast that had John Whittaker. I think they had 3 Whittakers on the podcast. And apparently he's won something like 95 cars or something like that in his career, which is just outstanding, isn't it? It's crazy.
Yeah. It's absolutely. Yeah.
And it's such an exciting sport. And when you're at Magic Millions, or, you're at Willinga, and, the atmosphere's there, or as you say, Showcase is a fantastic show, it shouldn't be too much of a jump to bring in those people. It just takes a few people who really fall in love with the sport.
Absolutely. And who can be your next owner and sponsor. And so every time you're in the ring, you've got to do the right thing, and you've got to give it your all and make sure that your horse is presented well. And, you just never know who's watching you and who might be your next owner. Just because anything can happen, and it might be somebody who you never met before, who's just taken a liking to you and just goes, I'm interested in having a horse, and I'm going to want you to ride it. So let's go and find a horse, or how can I help this show get better next year? And you've got to always put yourself out there, which is something I'm not very good at. Susie's much better at that than I am. but you just never know who's out there, who's thinking about helping the show, you, somebody else. We all need to help each other, because the more money we can get in the sport, the better it's going to get. The more prize money there can be, it's just a flow-on effect, and it can gather momentum if we just has to start somewhere. And if we can do that, who knows where it could end up.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to ask what you think needs to happen over the next 5 years, I guess, to lift the standard in our sport here. I mean, we've got fantastic breeding programs and the breeders are doing a great job.
Yeah, I think the breeding in this country has got so much better. You've got people with amazing mares that are willing to breed and do embryos and ICSI and all of those type of things. And we can get pretty well most semen out of Europe, so we can breed amazing horses. The sport's in pretty good shape, I think. It's, we're jumping big enough tracks regularly enough on good ground. For me, there's one thing I'm a big believer in: being on pace when you're riding. For me, having a time fault for me is almost a non-negotiable. That's my fault. If I have a time fault, that's on me. It's not on the horse. So for me, I like to teach my horses very early on to be on pace. And you'll probably notice in most classes, I'm one of the faster ones in the first round. I like to have my horses on pace, and I don't like to be underprepared. So when it comes to a big class, I don't want to be under pace and be worried about the time allowed. That's one thing that's in my control, that I can eliminate that. If I've trained from meter 10 to my horse is going around at 400 meters a minute instead of the 300 or 350 that the time allowed is, it comes to the big tracks, I'm not worried about it. And the flow-on effect from that is one of the biggest problems we have when we go over to Europe and America is not only you're jumping bigger jumps, but if you ride like you're in Australia, you're 10 seconds over time. So for me, I mean, I have no plans to go overseas, but if I ever do, I want myself and my horse to be prepared that is not something that's going to happen. There's times to have time faults when you're training and you're stepping up to a class and you're not worried about the actual result. Then for me, no dramas to have a time fault. But if it's within your control and it's a big class, time fault's the worst thing that could happen to me. I'd probably prefer to have one down and it be my fault than jump a really nice round and be 1 or 2 seconds over the time allowed and go, that was 100% in my control and I should have been better. And it also comes down to, you get in the jump off and you're used to riding on pace more. So you already have an advantage over quite a few others. And then the flip side of that is, you go to America and Europe, those jump offs are so fast. They're us at our fastest in Australia, we're not even in the top 10. It's a different sport there. So for me, a big thing that I like to focus on is being on pace. It sets you up for success, I feel. And I feel a lot of other people forget to train that. And when you're a little up tempo as well, you generally make less mistakes. You have a little bit more momentum. It's a little easier to ride once you're used to it. And it sets people up for a better result. And then when we have an international course designer over, everybody's always having 5, 6 time faults on the first day. And then by the end of the show, they're not, but they're riding up tempo and they're actually getting a better result. And I think a lot of people underestimate the value of being on pace. And a lot of them will be like, if I need to get under time, I'll do an inside turn. That's fine, but also, it doesn't hurt to be on pace all the time. And there are horses that are prone to time faults. That's a part of the sport as well. And that's where you do need the inside turns that not everybody else is doing. But for me, I'm going to pick a horse that's on the pace and is not going to be having a time fault, because it's something I'm a big believer in.
That certainly rings true from what I've heard from other people as well. So, Sam, we've got a tradition on the podcast that each guest leaves the question for the next guest without knowing who that guest will be. And your question comes from Emma Collins, and she would like to know, who is your favourite horse and rider combination at the moment?
Okay. It's a tricky one. I would have to say, and it's a bit of a different one, I'm a big fan of McLean Ward on Tyser Herman's old horse, High Star Hero. it's a horse that's on pace, and it's the type of horse that I would like to ride. It's a careful, very sharp, very fast. And I mean, McLean's an absolute magician when it comes to horses and jump offs, and it's something I aspire to be like. I want to be, ideally, I mean, I'm never going to be, but I would like to be able to ride jump offs like that, and that's what I aspire to do. But so I would have to say he's definitely up there. There's some other ones. I think any of Laura Kraut's ones are also amazing, and again, she likes a hot, fast horse, same as me, and yeah, so any of those would have to be definitely in my top ones. And then I would also say nationally, I quite enjoy watching Tom on Venti at the moment. He's just really switched on, and he's just got that horse going amazingly. So nationally, I'd have to say that. So yeah, I think that'd be my answer.
So have you got a question that you'd like to leave for our next guest?
I do, and this is a question that Susie and I talk about quite a bit. And the question is, if you could train with anybody in the world, who would it be and why? Now, Susie and I, we changed our mind a lot on this. So it's a very interesting question. And yeah, I'll be interested to hear the answer.
And I'm very interested to ask that question. That's a brilliant one. Thank you so much for your time this evening, Sam. It's really been lovely getting to know you and to chat with you. And I'm sure that this is going to be a very popular episode with people. So thank you very much again.
Thanks for having me on, Jo. It's been a pleasure.